Welcome to Hello Self. It's a podcast focused on turning your cans into cans and your dreams into plans. I am your host, coach, and author, Patricia Leonard.
I am your host, Patricia Leonard, and have I got a surprise for you today. So get out your pens and pencils and turn your phone off and listen. Because if you remember, self is about turning your cans into cans and your dreams into plans. And I have a guest today that has turned his dream and continues turning his dreams into plans. And he's got a formula he'll share with you today to get you off of that someday shelf and put it out there now. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us on Hello Self, each of our podcasts. We really appreciate that. So my guest today, as I mentioned, has done things that most of us just think, oh, that's nice. He did it. He lived it, he did it, and he continues to do it. And we're going to put a lot of information out because I think you'll want to get a hold of him afterwards. His name is Kevin Foster. Now, that maybe doesn't mean anything to you right now. He's educated me in just looking at his documentaries. And the way we're going to go about this today is I'm going to read a bio about him, and then I'll let him really tell you the real story. So we'll turn it over to him then. And you know me, I always interrupt. So it's going to be more like a conversation because I want to make sure we get everything out that Kevin knows that can help you and pay attention. So here we go with the bio and an overview of who Kevin is. Since his electrocution, and yes, I did say electrocution, and return from death in 1968, Kevin has devoted his life to turning his dreams into realities. It's all about what our show is about. At age 16, he became a professional actor and worked steadily for the next decade in theater, both on and off Broadway in New York, as well as in film. Training in his chosen profession consisted of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, the Actors Studio, and a lot of you have heard of these places, the HB Studio, and with Stella Adler, all in New York City. In 1989, Kevin burst onto the national scene where he broke the near impossible Guinness World Record of traveling the entire length of the New York subway in 26 hours, 21 minutes, and 8 seconds. A year later, he followed up that accomplishment with becoming the first and only person to ride a bicycle from one end to the other atop the Great Wall of China, covering some 2,000 miles and earning the 1990 Cyclist of the Year award over his friend, 3-time Tour de France champion Greg LeMond. Needless to say, Kevin took a serious detour from his acting career after that. The 90s became one roller coaster ride after another for Kevin when he followed up with the last greatest cycling adventure on the face of the earth with the American Summits Tour of placing a full-scale mountain bike atop the highest natural point in each of the 50 United States. Can you imagine that? From the tip to tip is about 1,158 miles. Tour de Cuba, the longest bicycle trek in the nation's history. Upon retiring, I know there's a lot here, but you're going to hear a lot about this man's life, and this is only a piece of it. Upon retiring from a career in adventure cycling in 1998, Kevin devoted much of his time to charity work, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that, before returning to his acting roots in 2004, adding producing and writing credits to his list with his debut feature film, Yesterday's Dreams. We'll have links to all of these, but I have watched them, and it's just, they're just amazing. You'll find yourself in all of them. Probably better than anything you'll see at the film house. But anyway, I shouldn't mention that. Yesterday's Dreams was one of them. He followed that project up by producing the feature-length documentary, Hollywood on Fire. It's about the integration of faith in the filmmaking in Hollywood, as well as producing the music CD Saber Bites, which held the #1 spot on college radio throughout North America during the summer of 2009. Mr. Foster has also been honored with entries in Who's Who in the World, Who's Who in America, Outstanding Intellectuals of the 21st Century, and the Marquee Who's Who Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. And he's going back to the Oscars and Academy Awards a week from now, or a week or so from now. But anyway, I looked at some of these films, and you'll want to. The Perfect Love, about a family that adopted special needs children. I mean, he touches on the soul as well as what's going on in society, and it does it in a real humanistic way. So I want to make sure that you pay attention. I am now going to introduce Kevin Foster. And thank you, Kevin, for being here. You have changed my life.
Well, thank you, Patricia. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. Just tell us a little bit about what you want to tell our audience about what has driven you to do this, what has been some of the key highlights that you feel of your career, and the overall objective that you have as a son of God and as a child on this planet at this time.
Well, you've pretty much given a rundown to the audience of who I am over the years, and we'll start with and I'm also a motivational speaker. I do a lot of talks around the country through my nonprofit, Foster Dreams, where our slogan is "Dreaming is a serious business," because it is. You got to be serious about your dreams. You can't just, I would like to do whatever, and you sit by and, wait for the hand of God to magically give you your dream like that. You got to work for it. And what I like to say in my motivational talks, what I like to say is that I'm so glad that I got my death over with at a young age so that I could learn to live my life. I could begin to live my life. And it's true that, with the electrocution, I got caught on a high tension wire 30 feet up and then, fell off the wire, but I received 65,000 volts and 30 amps that coursed through my body. And then, of course, the electricity came out of my body. So I have various holes throughout my body where the electricity came out. And once you experience death and you find, well, that's not a big deal. It's, okay, this is what death is like. I'm free. This is the ultimate freedom that you have, because you could travel at the speed of thought. All your thoughts here can go out and you can receive, you got 1,000 thoughts, they go out, 1,000 thoughts come back. Whereas we as humans, we're very limited because we can only speak one thought. I have so many thoughts right now, but I can't get them to you. I can only get one out at a time. Your eyesight, you can see clearly for miles. Your hearing is super sensitive. What I like to tell people is that, in heaven, you as a person cannot go to heaven because the colors alone would kill you. Okay. There's so much there that you really don't want to come back, because you got that freedom and this awe and you're in joy. But, coming back here, obviously there was a purpose. God thought, well, there's a purpose I had to come back. But once I had that taste of freedom that I call, I didn't have the fear now of going out into the world to experience all that the world has to offer. And I'm saying the good, not the bad. I never got into drinking. I never got into drugs. I don't smoke. I didn't want any of that stuff, but I wanted the fun of what this life can bring you. And to me, having a 9-to-5 job is not fun. There's like work is definitely a 4-letter word that I just don't like. Okay. That's play. Now, that's a good 4-letter word. Work is a bad 4-letter word. Okay.
You just redefined it, Kevin. That's all you did.
Right. So if you could take work and change it into your play and get paid, wow, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'd all be on that bandwagon. Yeah.
Right. So once the fear was out, now it was, how do I get this kind of life? How do I make these dreams come true? And what has always helped me is that, of course, in the old days when you actually physically had to go to the library, and the two places I hung out as a child was either the library or the movie theater. But I would go and read biographies of famous people or biographies of people that I know, like, who made it.
Yes.
And when you're reading a lot of these biographies, you begin to see a pattern on how they made it and really turning your dreams into reality. And that's what your show is all about. And that's what your listeners want to know. You have to have what I call the 3D method. The 3Ds are the desire, the discipline, and the determination. You have to have the 3Ds working for you. And another approach that I like, I call it man up. That's M period, A period, N period. Man up. You got to man up. And what man up are the 3 things that I love: marketing, I love analyzing, and I love networking. Man up. And if you could get these 3 and really get these 3 into your DNA, coupled with the desire, the discipline, and the determination, that will go a long way in helping you achieve your dreams. The other thing that I have found is that the mistake a lot of people make is they try to go after it themselves. If you try, and a study was made, I think in Harvard, a study was made that if you try to go after a dream yourself, you will have a 39.5% chance of making it. However, if you couple up with somebody, if you buddy up with somebody, now it's the 2 of you working together to help each other achieve your dreams. Now you both have a 79.5% chance of making it.
What do you think is the magic in that dynamic with a 2?
Well, because of my death, because of where I've been over the last almost 60 years, I have met Jesus Christ face to face. I have met Satan face to face. I have been to heaven. I've been to hell. I know these other worlds. And so a lot of people, what I tell people is, like, first of all, the Bible is the wisest book that we have on the face of the earth. And guess what? It's not copyrighted. If you study the Bible and you study the Word of God, you can become a success because there's so many ideas in there. There are so many stories. When we came into film 130 years ago, the first, when Edison started with film, when he came up with the motion picture projector, the first films were passion plays. They took stories from the Bible because they were not the two works that you have that are not copyrighted are the Bible and Shakespeare.
Oh my gosh, and I love Shakespeare. He taught us about life in his,
And it's right. So you could take these stories and turn them around and make them modern and all this. And so I always go back to the law. You have God's law, man's law, man's law is not man's law. Man's law is code. So you got, but when you talk about the dynamic with the two, well, it says it in the law. It starts right there in Genesis. When a man leaves his mother and his father and cleaves unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh.
Yes.
And so you partner up with somebody, or like you have a helpmeet, someone who helps meet your needs. So this is all biblically based, but people just don't realize it. And they do these studies and they find, if you have two together, you increase your chances of turning your dreams into reality. And yet that's biblically based, but we don't say it.
Yes.
So the other thing, and I consider myself a realistic dreamer. I'm not a dreamer. I'm a realistic dreamer because I have my dreams. And now Sidney Poitier, I love Sidney Poitier.
Yes.
Finest act. Now, Sidney Poitier once said, if your dreams are not big enough to scare you, then they're not worth pursuing.
Right on.
When I tell people like, I don't know, I want to go to Disney World or I want to take a cruise. That's my dream. Okay, well, get a job, save money, and then you could do that. I'm not talking about those dreams. I'm talking about life-changing dreams that you're going to do something like cycling the Great Wall of China. That everyone said that was impossible. My father first heard of that when I was 12 years old, when Nixon went to China, and Nixon is on the Great Wall of China. And I had just gotten out of a wheelchair after my electrocution. I had about 4 years in a wheelchair and therapy, and my legs got stronger. And for Christmas, I got a bicycle with training wheels on it. And a month later, Nixon goes to China in January of 72. And there's the Great Wall. And the Great Wall, my bicycle. I'm like, oh, wow, what a great thing to ride my bicycle on.
Yes.
When I came out and said that, my father just said, this kid needs a psychiatrist. I'm absolutely crazy. You're never going to do it. Now, my family was a blue-collar family.
Yes.
They came from Italy, immigrant. I'm the first-born American in this country of my generation. They were factory workers. This is what you were going to do. And I'm like, are you kidding? I don't want to be stuck in a factory. But I wanted to go after these dreams. And it took 18 years to get permission to cycle the Great Wall.
Right.
A lot of people today want instant gratification. If you're going after an impossible, the whole world is telling you what you have is an impossible dream. And you're going after something like that's probably going to take a long time. So what happens? Well, you get discouraged. We all get discouraged. And so what you do to pick yourself up is you go for, say, a little dream. Go after a little dream, a tiny dream, and make that come true. And that gives you the confidence. That builds up your confidence.
Yes.
To then continue to go after the bigger dreams. So, yes, I went after it when I was 12. Well, I wrote to Nixon, I wrote to Mao, and I'm not going to get permission. I'm 12 years old. I'm not going to. Plus, you didn't have the technology in 1972 to go and cycle the wall. That's one. Then at 16, I thought, okay, I'm 16. But then I turned professional as an actor, and my life went another way. And then I thought, well, maybe like when I'm 20, I'll try it again. So I was always trying to get permission. But
you kept your dream in your heart and head, even though you took these other routes for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was still that. So then, and this is how life happens, I was, what?
No, but that's what I agree. Yes, you have to keep focus on what your dream is.
Right.
Even while you're doing these other things, yes.
Right. So I became a professional actor basically because I grew up in the theater. Then I turned pro at 16. My first film, I'll age myself. My first film was Friday the 13th. No, I didn't get killed by Jason. I really wanted to get killed by Jason, but because it'd been just a fantastic story to tell as I got older. But I had a lot of fun on the film and I met a lot of great people and continued with my acting career. And then I got a job with this play, and it was a brand new play. It was about the Vietnam War. The director said, "Hey, it's just for like 2 weeks." And I thought, well, I would like that. I could create my own character. I could do it. It's Vietnam. Okay. Well, I agreed to it. And the 2 weeks turned into 2 years with the show. And I stayed with it because, hey, it was a nice paycheck.
Yeah.
And getting paid for it. And we ended up on Broadway. And after the 2 years, I needed a little time to myself. And I heard that little voice in my head. You need to be in tune with that little voice in your head.
Yes.
And it said, well, what do you want to do now? I mean, like, whatever you want to do, what would you like to do now?
That little voice said to you?
Yeah. What would you want? And I said, I was offered Hamlet at the Yale Rep. And I'm like, wow, okay, but what do you want? I'm 25 years old at this time. I was feeling kind of old. And I just said, I'd like to cycle the Great Wall of China. And right after I said that, right after I answered that little voice in my head, I met somebody at a party. And this guy was a political speechwriter. I mean, he had the education I always wanted. He went to Georgetown University. He went to Harvard. And we met at a party and we were just talking. And he said, well, like, what do you want to do? What's your dream? And I told him. And he laughed, but he laughed differently. He said, that's a crazy idea. I tell you what, I'll help you. Let's see how far we can get with this. So here came my counterpart. So at all this time, from 12 to, at this time, I think I was 26. So from like 12 to 26 for 14 years, I'm trying to pursue this dream of cycling the Great Wall on my own. Now I got somebody who became my counterpart, and he taught me about networking. And he said, Kevin, you've been on the streets since you were a kid. You know a lot of people. You have to know somebody that can help you get in this door. And I said, well, I don't think I really know anybody. And I wasn't used to the networking at this time.
Right.
And we started talking, and I was telling him when I was like 14 years old, this guy was running for Congress in my state, and I helped at the office, stuffing envelopes for his campaign. I was 14 years old. And then he got elected to Congress, and he was a congressman. And I told him, he said, well, Kevin, his name was Chris Dodd. And my friend went, Kevin, do you realize that Chris Dodd is the head of the Foreign Relations Committee to China? And I said, no, really? Oh, I haven't been in touch with Chris. Yeah. And then I was telling him, the story about, and here's another thing about your dreams. So this point I want to get on for your people and your dreams.
Yes.
You have a particular dream and you see everybody going this way, one way. You see like a pile of people and you're like, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get through that? Well, what you have to find is you have to look around and went, oh, wait a minute. Nobody is going that way. I'm going to go that way and work my way around to the back. Because your dreams are like a house that's made up of all doors. So a lot of people think I got to go through the front door. But wait a minute. You have the back door. You have the side doors. There are doors coming through the roof. There's doors to the basement underneath. It's what door can I find that no one or not that many people are going through? And when I was a kid, we'd have a homework assignment on like social studies.
Yes.
And okay, you need to study a country. Well, I got to tell you, in those days, 50 years ago, everybody's running to the library. And by the time I got to the library, all the books for all the countries are taken out. And I got nothing. Like, where do I go to research for a country to write a report on? And that was really discouraging because everybody, see, that's the crowd going to the library.
Yes.
So I have to find another way. And I love National Geographic magazines. I just love National Geographic because you get to travel all over the world through these wonderful photos and stuff like that. And I was just looking at one time, and somewhere in the back cover, inside cover, it had their 1-800 number. Oh my goodness, a toll-free number. I could actually call Washington, D.C. for free. That was a big thing when you were a kid.
Yes.
And because if you made a long distance call and it came up on the phone bill, your father was going to kill you because you.
That's true.
And so I could call for free. And so I would call National Geographic and say, hey, I got to do a report on a country and I don't have any information. I can't get it. And they would send me all kinds of information. They would mail me, articles and magazines and all kinds of stuff. And so I used National Geographic throughout my middle school and high school years. So I got to know the people at National Geographic. Oh, hey, Kevin, how you doing? And I was telling my friend this, and he was like, you know somebody at National Geographic? I said, yeah, well, Kevin, listen, if you can call them and you can call Chris Dodd and you can get letters on their letterhead saying, would you allow Kevin to cycle the Great Wall of China? That's going to go a long way to help you get permission. I said, really? Ma, I didn't know that. Okay. So boom, I called Chris, I called National Geographic, and they both said, Kevin, that's the craziest idea we've ever heard. Well, you know what? Okay, we'll write you a letter. Let's see how far you get with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole thing. And here I was trying for 14 years, trying to get permission. And 2 letters were sent to the Chinese consulate in New York City with their letterhead on it, asking the government to give me permission to cycle the Great Wall. And within a couple of months, I had the permission.
I want to interrupt here to my audience. Can you hear what Kevin's saying? We always feel like we're on our journey alone. And we are not if we take the advice he's talking about right now that he had to discover the hard way. And that is, who do you know? You know somebody or somebody knows somebody. And Kevin, you're bringing up something in me. When my son was 12 years old, and I should not give up on this dream, but if somebody were to ask me today, I would tell them this is my big dream. But I think I've given up, and now I'm listening to you. And I want all the audience out there to remember, this is not only about Kevin. This is about you, and I'm going to share something that he has triggered in me. And everybody that knows me knows that I'm telling the truth about this. When my son was 12 years old, I wrote a book titled Wearing High Heels in a Flip-Flop World. And most of you know that's how I came the everyday diva. But I didn't do anything with it. I felt like being a mother was the thing that I should do. And then I got involved in corporate. Just like Kevin is talking about, we take side roads or detours to where we're really going a lot of times. And what I had always said was that show, it was a one-woman show that I took from that book and created. I had never done screenwriting. You don't have to know. Nobody's going to see it but you at that time. And just write down. So I created the verbiage for this one-woman show, and it was just one person in midlife telling her story about maybe this is not an ending, but a new beginning. And what I'm realizing is I always told my family, and they could vouch, all of my friends know this, Patricia, what is your dream? And it is, and still is, and you just resurfaced it again in me, Kevin, it is still to take my one-woman show to Broadway. I've seen the marquee, Patricia Leonard, in high heels, the Broadway show. Now, I have seen that, and that's what Kevin is talking about. The visual came to me first years ago. And here I have just avoided getting on with it, but he's triggering something. Now, what I ask you, audience, what is Kevin triggering in you about your dreams? It doesn't matter what it is. What is he triggering? And that one of the things that he just told you right now is networking. Talk to the people that are in that, even if you don't know them. He reached out to National Geographic and he became friends with some people there. So I don't want you to miss these things, these great messages and encouragement and inspiration that Kevin is giving, because I just got inspiration too. So Kevin, thank you. And I'll step out of it now and let you go on. This is phenomenal. This is exactly what the people need. Yeah.
Well, so we now have an example. So let's take this example for your audience. We'll take this example and run with it. And, how I see. And also, like I said, I love networking. I love meeting people. I love hearing their stories that inspire, because then I can take them and share them with other people that can then get inspired to go after their dreams. So we'll take you, Patricia, as an example now. So you have this dream, you want to, and you see it, you visualize it. That's another thing, visualization. You see it in your mind's eye. You see the marquee, you see, Broadway. So that's the end goal, okay? The end goal is Broadway, but now you have to take steps in order to get to the end goal. You can't rush the end goal, because I'm going to tell you and tell your audience, dreams don't have a timeline.
Yeah.
So if someone told me, okay, Kevin, yes, you're going to cycle the Great Wall of China someday, but it's going to take you 18 years to get permission. What? 18 years? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't do that. But you don't think like that, but there's your end goal and you keep going. And again, this is like a game. When we would play board games, you roll the dice and you go so far, and then boom, an obstacle comes up. And now you got to go back 3 spaces. And then you go forward, but you knock down that obstacle, you get to the next one. Then another obstacle comes up and hits you in the face and knocks you back a couple of steps. But a dream is never you go straight. It's you go, you come back, you go, you come back. I mean, this is how it is. So we take yours. Now, I'll give you an example. This woman had a dream like yours, similar to yours.
Yeah.
Her name was Nia Vardalis. And Nia had a crazy family. She had this crazy family, and she said, I have got to write this down. And I'm going to do a one-woman show.
Yes.
About my crazy family.
I saw it.
But she had where she knew where she wanted to go with it as the end goal. But she knew where she started, she wasn't going to go, okay, I wrote this one-woman show, and now next week we're going to take it to Broadway. Not going to happen. And I know this story because Nia and we share the same lawyer. So that's how I know this. And so she does this one-woman show, and she's an actress, and she's trying to, she gets some parts here and there, but at times she continues to do her one-woman show. And then as she's doing it with the audiences, she's always like kind of rewriting it and like, oh, the audience liked this part. Oh, the audience didn't really like this part. So she's constantly, developing it as she's acting in it. And she was doing it wherever she could do it. And so at this point, she's doing the show, her one-woman show, in the basement of a church. So that's where she was going with it.
Mm.
Well, during this time, and someone was in the audience because they took their mother and said, oh, Mom, let's go see this show. It might be funny. Let's check it out. And they went to see it. And they laughed and they loved it. And this woman loved it and decided to tell her husband about it.
Yes.
And her husband, would check it out and said, oh, okay, so Nia didn't get to do and in your dreams, you must be willing to improvise. You must be willing to change the course of where your dream is going. You must be willing to change the course, and don't be stubborn to say, no, it's got to be this way, because dreams are fluid, like the river. They're fluid. They're not concrete. They're not straight. Believe me, you go after a dream. I never achieved a dream in a straight line. It's always been crooked and going. And so what Nina wanted, her idea,
right,
Broadway, she didn't get. However, what she got was a movie version.
Yes, I saw
And
it.
she got to star in the movie herself, and she got to help pick the cast. And she was nominated for an Academy Award for her script. And that movie and it was a little $5 million movie that made over $400 million at the box office. And this movie was called My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yes.
And the woman in the audience was Rita Wilson, who was Greek, takes her mother, sees the play, brings her husband, Tom Hanks, into it. He thinks, oh, this will be a cute movie. We'll put $5 million into it. Boom, there you go. Get it all together. So what Nia was thinking came into a much bigger dream. So you can't be afraid to put it out there, and you just never know. This happened in the basement of a church. So look where it went.
Yes. Oh my God, Kevin, this is exactly what our world needs to hear. These kind of things that, number one, it's coming from somebody like you who has achieved. And you're not making it seem that I am the only one that can do these things. You're giving back to the world. And that's why God saved you, is because He knew that you are going to be able to impact others' lives that have maybe given up. And I just want to tell you something else that you just did for me. Now, my audience, I don't want you to think that this is just for me. I'm sharing some things that maybe is coming to you too. So when Kevin said that Nia, who many of us saw that movie, and yes, it was fabulous. And when I don't know, you don't really let go, but when she was open to know this is the only way, she was open to other ways. And so I have to tell you something that I have made a commitment to for 2025. And these are things I never thought about until Kevin started talking. Here is something my dream since I was in my 30s. And that was it, to take it to Broadway. Here's something that I've just committed to, and I'm giving up on everything that I've been doing up until this point. Not giving up, but letting go that it's my driving force. But I said I'm going to go into professional speaking. I used to do that, but I'm backing it up now. And I'm going to go into professional speaking. But guess what? Why? I can take the content of my one-woman show and tweak it just like Kevin said Nia did. And now I'm going to use that information as part of my speaking engagement. And so it's taking the same process that I had in my head, but Nia was willing to go in another direction. So am I now, because I don't know if that's what God had planned for me was Broadway, but I do know that the message in the show, because it came to me in a dream, the message in the show is definitely what I need to be speaking about. So take what Kevin's giving you now. These are achievable goals, But don't just get caught up in it's only this way or it's going to be at this time. Because he's saying, take what you know needs to be out there and you have a dream about and you never know. Look what a cycle riding thing took him out of a wheelchair and then made him a national speaker and motivator for people. So I want you to pay attention. He was talking about networking. He was talking about being open. He was talking about looking at where could these dreams go next. Oh my God. Right on. So don't miss this. Okay, Kevin, I'm going to step out of it again. Oh my, this is so good.
Again, we'll go back to you, Patricia. So let's go with your vision. You got your vision and you said, oh, I see my name. I see the marquee. But the thing is, what did you see? Is your name on a marquee on a Broadway theater, or is it on a movie? Is it in a movie theater? You don't know.
Yes.
Like Nia, right? Broadway. Yes. No, it went instead to a movie, changed the course of her life.
Yes. And mine's going towards speaking right now. Yes.
Yeah. So you don't know and that's where, like I said, the man up, where you analyze. There's I love analyzing problems or like these people. I want to learn from people that have had these problems so I can avoid them and not waste my time and be able to move further along. Just like I hope people can learn from my mistakes and analyze what I've been through and avoid all this other time wasted stuff and, get right to the heart of the matter. And that's why networking is important. So people might say, well, how do you network? Well, usually I'll say this. Basically, who wants to be rich and famous? Well, everybody raises their hand. Okay. It's not cracked up what it's to be, but okay. And I wanted it. I got it. I've had a changed life because of it. The bicycle changed my life. But when I was about 10 years old, so my mother sits me down and I learn a new word at 10. And that word is called tithe. Now, 10, I'm 1970. It was 1970. I was kind of out of the wheelchair, doing my therapy. So my little job was to take the trash out, collect the trash, take it and dump it so it can be collected. And at that time, I got 25 cents a week. Now, that's a lot of money, okay? I could buy 2 comic books. I got penny candy. I could get a banana split. I mean, all kinds of wonderful things that I can get for a quarter. Then my grandparents, because we had lived in an apartment, my grandparents were below, and they said, oh, well, Kevin, we'll give you a job and you can collect our trash and take it. And then they gave me 25%. Oh my goodness, 50 cents a week. Man, I am rich.
Yeah.
I get to have all. So then my mother sat me down. Now, I don't know what the word tithe means. I have no idea what it means. We go to church on Sundays, but I don't know. So what she did was this. She took the 2 quarters, she put them down, and she got 10 nickels. She put 10 nickels in a row. And she said, now I'm going to teach you this, Kevin. See, these 10 nickels equal these 2 quarters. This is what you get every week. And now you need to tithe. You need to give back to God. Because see, God gave you this. God is giving you the strength to come out of the wheelchair. God is allowing you to do this. So here's what tithe means. So you take this 1 nickel and you put it over here. And she slid the nickel off to the side. And that when we go to church on Sunday, so I get paid on Friday.
Right.
So when we go to church on Sunday, you take this 1 nickel and you put it in the plate. You give it back to God. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, so God gives me this and I get to keep 9 nickels and God gets 1 nickel? And she said, yes, that's a tithe, 10%. I said, well, that doesn't seem fair. I think God should get more. And well, that's up to you. but he doesn't say that. He says, give me a tithe. And I went, okay. So I started that, but then eventually I got into 20%. I mean, let me put it this way. It's been a long time since I gave 10%. Okay. And it took me 50 years to figure out how to give 100% away. And how you give, and this is the success, because what God is teaching you is if you, and it says it, this is biblical, come on, this is the law. If you are trusted in the little things, I will give you more, to trust you more responsibility, more. It's a growth thing. And people have a really hard time because, you see, basically Satan says, he who dies with the most toys wins. No, he who dies, dies. And somebody else gets your toys.
Yes.
And the law says, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. What this means is God is saying, I own everything. I own the earth. I own below the earth. I own above the earth. I own you. I own every person's last breath. I own it all in the palm of my hand. And when you look at that, whatever you've been blessed with, a property, money, you're not an owner. You're a caretaker. And so this has been entrusted to you to take care of so that others may be blessed. And so as I started going, so much would go into my trust account. And you figure out, okay, how long do you think you're going to live? When you get into your old age, how much money do you think you're going to be able to need to be comfortable? Because, hey, I'm not exactly going to be able to survive on Social Security. Well, I have to put the money away and have investments and have an entire team of people helping me with those investments all over the place. And so once you have, and I'm on the Moses scale, okay, I'm going for the full 120 years. Okay.
Me too. Amen.
Right. I'm on the Moses timetable and I'm like, okay, I'll go for, like, when I turned 60, people think that was old age. And I'm like, what? 60? I'm midlife. I'm halfway through my life. Okay.
Oh, you're my
goal
man.
my goal is the 120. So how much money am I going to need for my wife and I to go for like 120?
Right.
And most of it's in the stock market where it earns 10%, but I don't need to live on that money because I'm still working. So I just say, pour it back in, just pour it back in. And so I'm like, wow, I figured I had a figure in my head for both of us. And I'm like, if we take that figure and just live on 10%, the dividend checks, we are going to be very comfortable with that. So once we had that goal and that's done, everything I do now, I just give it away. I don't care about the money. I like the work. Oops, that's a bad word. I like the play. I like creating. I like doing. That would be fun. I want to do that. But yes, you should. A person should be paid what they're worth, but I don't need it. So I just want the work. I want the accomplishment, and give the money to charity, give the money to godly causes to help people.
You talk about charity there, and you had mentioned something earlier about what is this charity that you have?
Well, I have, first I've got a nonprofit and I got a foundation.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the nonprofit is basically going after grants and helping people, and that's fosterdreams.org. You can see it, the website, fosterdreams.org. And that's really, I go out and speak and I talk to kids, I talk to people. It actually started out going for the kids, but then the parents would be, well, I have a dream. I would be interested in hearing this. I would get like more parents than the kids, and the kids would listen, but it's the parents that are taking the notes. Because you see, everybody, I don't care what your age is, so long as you are alive, you have a dream.
You have a dream. I agree.
Right. So when I did an interview for ABC just before I went to China, and I said, right now I have a full shelf of dreams. This was like almost 40 years ago. I have a full shelf of dreams and an empty shelf of realities. And as I get older, I want to see the two reversed. So that as I'm getting older, I see my dream shelf diminishing and my reality shelf increasing. But you know what my problem is? Once I figured out the formula of turning your dreams into reality, I keep adding more dreams to the shelf. So it's like I'm never going to run out.
We're greedy.
Yeah, we're greedy. I want more dreams. Ooh, this would be fun. Here's another dream. And that's all I'm constantly doing is still adding dreams to this shelf, but I'm still adding realities. I turned that one into a reality. Here you go. Check. Okay, got that one done. And so when I ask people, okay, you want to be rich and famous. How do you start? You start by serving others. That's how you start. Okay, because Satan is grab all that you can, accumulate all that you can. It's for you, for me, centered, okay? But God, and people can't understand this, God says, give it away. I'm going to give you more. You're going to give it away. I'm going to give you more. So the more you give away, the more you're going to get back. And people can't understand that. But it works. I'm telling you, it works because I've been doing it for decades. And now, like when I turn 60, I'm like, hey, we're in a position, just give it all away. And let's just have the fun creating and not have to deal with any of this stuff because you've got your investments that you can live on.
Right. But you're not suggesting to people that they get all that, their financial base in place before because I'm seeing what our world is doing right now. We have a me focus.
Right. You have to have a God focus. You have to have a focus for other people. And that's where my foundation comes in, and this was interesting too, because you've always been taught, well, you have a nonprofit and you can only help nonprofits, other charities. And I'm like, wait a minute. Here are people in need. And if there's someone in need, and if I'm there, I need to be able to help them and not have the IRS come down on me because, I did something illegal by actually helping a person and not the charity. If there's, and so I talked to my lawyer, my trust lawyer who set all this up. And I said, Mark, listen, you know how thick that IRS book is? It's like really thick. Okay. You know how the print is? The print's really small in the IRS book. And if the IRS can have a rule on how to get blood out of a turnip, I have to believe they have a rule that says my foundation, we can help people that are in need. And I said, you need to find it. And it took him a couple of weeks of studying and he found it. He found the rule in the IRS book. And it actually explained it. My God, this is one of the few rules in the IRS book that they actually explain what they mean. And it says, for instance, if somebody's house burns down and they need a shelter place, they need a motel, they need somewhere to go, they need food, they need items, you can pay for it, but you can't give them the money. You pay for the motel. You pay for the groceries. You pay for the stuff out of your foundation, out of your nonprofit to help them. And then they had a form that basically, get their name and address and contact information and how much did you help them for? What did you do for them? And have them sign
all the details.
Yeah, and then have them sign it. And that's just for my records in case I'm ever audited. I said, well, here are people that we actually helped. And we've been able to do that where, the flooding victims in North Carolina, and we knew people there and they were destitute. They're living in tents and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, get them, get them into a motel, get them into places. Right. And our money went that way for them.
But in your nonprofits, what you're looking at, a lot of it, you said earlier, is that you're helping people identify their dreams, right?
Yeah, that's Foster Dreams. Now, Foster Dreams is my dreaming, where I say dreaming is a serious business. And that's where we come in where I do the talks and show you the formula like I'm doing with you right now and your audience right now. And that's that. And my other foundation, which is a private, Foster Dreams is public. That's my public nonprofit. And my foundation is private, where we're not asking for money, we're giving it away. And so the two work like, hand in hand.
Right.
And I do a lot of work, like I say, for my nonprofit in traveling and talking. We have a couple of programs where we have called DAD, Donate a Dream. And my nonprofit started like in August of 2012. In December of 2012, back in my home state in Connecticut was the Newtown school massacre, where 26 people, 26 students, teachers, the principal who was murdered went to my high school. And I remember talking at that school not that long ago before this massacre happened. And that really hurt my heart. And I said, these kids today are so self-centered, me. And I said, okay, I got to come up with a program. And I prayed about it. And I said, I got it. And I went to my board. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to give every kid $25. And they're like, well, what? I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into a school. We're going to test this out. And I tested it out in my little town here in the mountains. I went to the principal and we talked about it. And when a kid is about 11, 12, 13 years old, this is where they're beginning to formulate their dreams. Before then, it's nothing. But at that time, they're starting to grow up. They're about to enter their teenage years, their dream, what are they going to do? But they don't know. And they need guidance. And they don't understand. And you come to a concept to them and say, well, really, you need to have a servant's heart. You need to think about serving others. So the principal and I, we went into the 7th and 8th grade. It's a very small school here. So 7th and 8th grade was like 30 kids between the two. And I walked in and I said, okay, every one of you is going to get a $25 charity check. Now, what that means is you're not getting $25 in cash, but now you have $25 and you need to find a nonprofit. You need to research it. What do you like? Go for that nonprofit. You need to write a letter to that nonprofit telling them why you are giving $25 to them. And then you can do whatever you want after that. And the principal teacher, she decided to let them make brochures to the nonprofits that they were giving to. Well, at first, these kids had no idea what to do. Why? Because they never gave. They're 11, 12 years old, and they have never given to anyone at that point. Their parents never taught them what my mother taught me about those 10 nickels, and one is given away. One is given to God. So they had problems with that. Well, and I expected it. And I've done this program since 2012 or 2013. I've done this program all over the country. I've done it to high schools, juvenile kids and juvie, gangs, gang people. And you just find these kids have never served. Right. So it took them a couple of months to do it, but they finally figured it out and they did it. And then after, I went back to the school to visit, to collect their letters, collect things. And I said, well, how do you feel about it? And they were like, I feel really good that I'm giving $25 to something that I really care about. And I said, well, that's the idea. And hopefully you will carry this feeling on into your life. And so then I took all the letters, I wrote all the checks, I sent them out to the charities. I sent them a letter, told them, this is my program, Donate a Dream, Dad. And then they would write back. And if you could, would you write back to the child? And these charities wrote back to the child. They sent them things. They wrote back to me. They were like, Kevin, what a fantastic program. You are teaching future philanthropists. What a great program that you have. So that's one of the programs that we have with Foster Dreams. We have another one called Daddy, which is discover a dream, period. Discover a dream, discover yourself. That's Daddy. And that's more of a workshop where it could be 1 day to 5 days, and I bring in this workshop and I give them the figures. Like everything that I'm telling you, I'm giving them examples. I'm giving them stories.
These are children.
Yeah, they're anywhere from teenagers on up and adults. A lot of the parents will come and they're like, I want to learn about this, and they're the ones that are taking the notes and stuff. But we do a lot of interactive stuff too. And that's part of my acting background.
Right.
Is the interactive stuff.
And I think that is key because words to me are shallow anymore. We've all heard them. And I remember I did a workshop on communication and I asked how many people have been to a communication workshop. Everybody raised their hands. And I said, okay, my next question is, are you a slow learner? And they sat there staring at me. And I said, if you have been to one, why are you back here again? So I think that we just listen or we do what this was in corporate America. And for these children, you're saying that they've never thought of this. I bet you that 90% of the adults have not even thought about giving back to organizations or where they could give back to children. This is when you were talking about all of this, I was thinking of Musk. What is your feeling about what Musk is doing? Because you were talking about the IRS and all of that. What's your feeling about Musk's approach to life?
Well, I know.
Is not getting into politics.
No, and that's fine. I know Elon, and he's got a good heart, and I know a lot of people, can't see that in the man. He does tend to be a bull in a china shop because he's going after things and doing things, but because of him and because of Trump, my goodness, there are things I never even heard of U.S. aid until they brought it. I'm seeing the waste. I'm reading this stuff and I can't believe this. And when I say I can't believe it, I have to go research. I have to go do my own research because I can't deal with one news organization over another. It's like, okay, fine. You let me know. Now let me go do my research. And I'm like, my God, look at the waste.
I know. And that's what I think sometimes we're running up against with transition or transformation. And my feeling is that 2025 is a beginning of a transformational or universal shift in who we are, the way we think, the dreams that we have. It's all moving and I think it's more spiritual. Now, some people call that God. Some people call it a knowing. It's just like a book I wrote, Listening and the Knowing. It's knowing how to listen and then to move toward accomplishing that. However, you've said on the way, you may see this and you may say, wow, but you would have never seen that if you hadn't moved. And some of the things that you're doing with your nonprofit is they would have never seen that if they hadn't said, the school people, for instance, if they hadn't said, well, come in and talk and we'll see if there's an interest. My grandchildren are out in California and they go to a public school. Well, they did, let's say, in their first, second, and up to sixth grade, I think. And I went out there to visit, and I went to the school to pick them up. You had to sign in, and my son and his wife had to say, Mom Pat, that's what I call myself, is going to come and pick up the kids. Well, while I was there, I got there a little early. And while I was there, the lady at the front desk said, you can go out there, and Gavin's out there doing this, and your granddaughter's in here in a Bible study. And I went, what? Now, this is California, mind you. And I said, a Bible study? Can I go in there and listen? She said, sure, just sit down and here, I'll show you where it is. And I went in and my granddaughter was in there. And I listened. They were, okay, I don't know if she was 5 or 6. I'm not sure that was the first grade. But anyway, yes, it was the first grade. And which doesn't really matter. But anyway, they were coloring pieces of Jesus or pictures of Jesus and these two women were talking about the story behind that picture. There, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. Those kids were listening to everything. So after it was over and my granddaughter went out in the play area where all of the children were. And so I stopped these two women and I said, I am curious. I would have never guessed that I would have seen anything biblical in a school. How did you get in here? Or in a school in California. How did you get in here? They said, well, we actually went to the school administrator, which the principal or whatever and said, here's what we'd like to do. And they said, well, let's see if there's any interest. And there was interest. They wanted to know more. What is this story about? Who is this? Now, some children knew about Jesus and knew about the story, but they were curious, and it was so quiet in there. Those kids were listening and coloring. So you just pointed out something that I think our world needs to understand. If you have a dream of working in a school and making a difference in the lives of children of the future and parents, then I think you should go for it. And I so admire you because it is not about the money. It is about the way we present it. They were making a story time for these children about Jesus and about stuff that Jesus had been involved in, but they were making it a story time and some kind of fun activity. Words are shallow. Takes more than that. It takes engagement, involvement, and I am so excited about, I know this is, I invited you in, but you're just bringing up everything in me that I go to the gym and I talk to all of these young people there that are the greeters. They're smart. We just don't give them credit. And maybe their parents didn't talk to them about the things, but they know what's going on. They know it's a me world at the adult level and every place. And it's filtering down in our society. And I'm telling you, it's not about Trump. It's about the God force that is shifting. Kevin, I am so grateful I've met you, and I am so grateful for what you're doing for our society, because I think you're part of, and yes, he did save you for a reason. He did save you, and you know that.
Yeah, no, I do know that. One of the things, I could never get into a corporate church. I mean, I've been through the gambit living in New York. I knew Sung Young Moon.
Yes.
Okay. I lived 2 blocks from the Jehovah Witness headquarters.
Yes.
My old pastor for 8 years was Norman Vincent Peale.
Yes.
When I came to California, I knew Bob Schuller. I knew Bob Schuller because of Norman Vincent Peale. And so I've had a well-rounded education. And really, I've been to corporate churches. I've been to mega churches. I've been to small country churches. What appalls me, and everybody's to each their own.
No.
But what appalls me is you'll have 100,000 member church where the pastor is making $50 million and having these mega mansions, and I got a different car for every day of the week. I remember when I met Bob Schuller out at Crystal Cathedral, and I had an introduction because of my pastor, Norman Vincent Peale. Now, Dr. Peale was a very simple man, simple clothes. And I come out to California back in the late 80s, and I meet Dr. Schuller. He's wearing $1,000 suits and $400 shoes. And this is in the late 80s. And I'm like, wow. And the churches of America need to help the people of America, not the government. The government needs to stay out, and it's the churches that need help. This was God's plan. I mean, I want to tell people God's plan is that if everyone in this country gave 10%, like God says, just 10%, we can run our government, we could run the world. And it even breaks down. It even breaks down to that, because God said, out of the 10%, he was like 3% of the 10% goes to function government. Goes to help people, and the other 7% to help government programs.
Yes.
So we're just getting so out of hand. Our forefathers would say, "What, are you people crazy? We went to war on 10%, and you're like at 50% or 80% or whatever." And I absolutely believe that the government needs to step out of a lot of these programs, and it needs to fall on the shoulders of the churches of America to come through.
You know, Kevin, that's very interesting concept. However, churches are no more than an organization of some of the same people that are running our government. So
Absolutely.
How do we clean all of that out? Because I have strong faith, but I don't go to church.
Right. Well, you know what? It's the congregations. It's the congregations of America that need to go to their pastor and their elders and say, "Look, I'll talk."
It's a business.
It is a business.
Yeah.
And, and what I call it, a business of fleecing the flock.
Yes.
And the flock is getting fleeced. And hey, if there are any black sheeps among the sheep, they're the ones that get it, because the black sheeps are the ones that are asking the questions. And it's like, listen, people, you are the congregation. It's your money every Sunday going into the plate. Where's that money going? Where I live, there's like a major city, major. And I'm saying like, it's like to us major, it's like, I think 150,000 people. It's like 40 minutes away from me.
Right.
There's like one area, I'm not kidding, one street. There is a different church, a different mega church on each corner.
Yes.
And this is years ago, one of the churches down there had over the years, a short of $2 million they couldn't account for. And this is in a town of 150,000 people. Well, what they did is they found out that the head secretary was dipping into the till, because a lot of people pay in cash.
Yes.
And, she was doing that for like a couple of years, but hey, she got everybody in her family a brand new car, and she took vacations and cruises and all this kind of stuff. She was really living the kind of life, but she siphoned off within 2 years, $2 million. And when you are that big and you have no idea where your money, because let me tell you something, you have to train yourself, money does strange things to people. Now, I'm working, I'm starving, I'm pursuing my dreams. I get to the Great Wall of China. I did that for nothing. But when I succeeded and I came back to my country, I had all these endorsements. Within a year, I became a millionaire. And that money, you go crazy with it. And you indulge in your vices. And my vice, and I still have this vice, but I control it somewhat. When I was a kid, I love art. I love art.
Me too.
And now I had money. And I remember I bought a Chagall. I bought a Miro. I was ready to buy a Picasso, a Rembrandt, a Monet. My mother, the difference was my mother loved Monet. That's how I learned about Monet, because she loved Monet. And my mother and I would go to the museums because I was her date, because my father didn't want to do it. So I got into the arts because of my mother. She loved Monet. The difference is my mother could only afford a print of Monet, but I could afford the original. And so I started really indulging in my passion for art, and then getting to meet some of the artists. And what's the fun thing? The fun thing about being famous? You get to meet a lot of people that you admire because they know who you are.
Yes.
And I was known as the Evel Knievel of mountain biking. and when I got to meet Evel Knievel, I was like, wow, Evel Knievel, when I got to meet Stan Lee, I'm like in my awe because Stan Lee created, Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four and Captain America and all these characters. And I got to meet Stan and, or like some of the artists when I first got to meet Thomas Kincaid, and it became, Brother Tom, Brother Kevin. Hey, Brother Kevin. Hey, Brother Tom, and I loved him, loved his wife and all. And so you get to meet these, but thankfully I indulge in a vice that actually makes money, because you could buy the art and have it on your wall, but that art is increasing as it goes. So you're like, I could sell this one now, so you have like millions of dollars hanging on your walls because that's my passion. You have to just watch it. You have to, if I wasn't,
anything can become addictive, right?
Yeah. If I wasn't God-centered, I would have probably been dead by now. I'd have been gone crazy with stuff. Who knows? And it's those times when times are crazy, you need to remember the law. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, be quiet, and let God come in and direct your paths. And so I've always thought of us as a team. And
yes, we're in this together, right?
Yeah, we're in this together, and he helps me with my dreams, and he brings people into my path to help recognize those dreams and make those dreams come true.
And that's what he will do for others.
Yes.
If we speak, here's my dream. Now, it doesn't always mean, like you have said earlier, that when you talk to God or your higher self, that exactly what you say is what it's going to be. So this is my dream, and here's what. So show me the desires of your heart, and I will show you the way. Does not always mean
right
exactly what you think it means, but you have to be willing to take the trip. You have to be willing to, and you said 3 things that I really want to bring out here, because I think that your 3 Ds about how to accomplish your dreams. What would that?
Okay, so first, well, you have an idea in your head.
Yes.
What is that? That's desire. Desire. I desire this. I want this. I want to do this. That's your desire. That's your D. Okay, desire. Okay, well, I don't know how to get it. And this is where I ask the Lord, this is really on my heart. There's not an original idea out there anymore, okay? Solomon, 5,000 years ago, Solomon was like, oh, woe is me, woe is me. He's the one that said there's not an original idea out there anymore. There's nothing new under the sun. That's 5,000 years ago. So and when I said earlier, when God says, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills, it also means I have all the ideas. And I say, Lord, could I just have one? Could I have an idea? Could you just bless me with an idea? And I'll go back to a person I admire. Can't wait to meet him in heaven. And his name was George Washington Carver. And what an incredible guy. I would love to do a movie on him someday. What an incredible man. And he wanted to have big ideas. He had big ideas. And he said in one of his talks, he said, I had big ideas. But the Lord said, no, my child, I'm going to give you the peanut. And George said, the peanut? Well, what can I do with a peanut? And he said, I'm going to show you what you can do with a peanut. And George Washington Carver went into his laboratory, and he never brought like a science book with him. He brought the Bible with him. That was his book. And he went into his laboratory and he stayed quiet and he prayed and he said, okay, what, Lord, do you want to show me what to do with this peanut? And he came up with over 300 different items just from the peanut. And that's what made George Washington Carver a great man. So I'm saying you have the desire. Now you need the determination. Whatever it takes, Lord, you and I, as a team, I'm determined to reach that end goal. How are you going to reach that end goal? You're going to reach it through discipline. And the discipline, like for me with the Great Wall of China, I get the permission to go. And right after I got the permission to go, I started getting corporate sponsors because they couldn't believe that. As a matter of fact, I remember McDonald's. I was trying to get McDonald's, And they were like, Kevin, we're trying to get McDonald's into Beijing and we can't even get in there. And what makes you think you're going to go cycle the Great Wall of China? And I said, I'll tell you why. Because you're a corporation, but I'm just a peon. That's how I'm going to go and get in. When I got it, I called McDonald's. I called my contact at McDonald's. Couldn't believe it. They actually called the consulate in New York City and said, is this true? Did Kevin really get the permission? Oh yeah, he's got the permission, And so I start with, the corporate sponsors and start like that. And that was what I was getting into it and I was training to go to China and it was in all the newspapers and TV. It was all over the country. And then I get hit by a truck and a truck cut me off and I smacked into the truck and I wasn't wearing a helmet and I went over the bars and struck my head and got a concussion. And now I'm 6 weeks in a dark room because I couldn't deal with the light because of my concussion. And so it had to be called off. And that scared me because I thought I lost permission. But the Chinese were really good about it. And they said, no, Kevin, your health means more. You take care of yourself. The permission is going to be good. So don't worry about it. I said, okay, thank you very much. Then I had the following year, someone heard about the story through the press and they wanted to cycle the Great Wall. So they were trying to steal it from me. And they put a word out into the press that I never had permission to cycle the Great Wall from the government. I just decided to do it on my own. And I was placed under arrest and thrown out of the country. And Kevin is just lying. So I started losing a lot of my corporate sponsors. And my corporate sponsors would drop me and go to this other team. And I'm saying, didn't anybody think about calling the consulate and saying if I had permission? No, they just believed the lie. And now I had to regroup and it took another year. And so I got the permission, but it still took me 3 years to gather resources. So you're down. Like, this is my dream. I believe God is giving me this vision and this dream. But then other people, other outside forces come in the way to try to take it away from me. That's where determination comes in. Are you determined and are you going to be disciplined to go through this nonsense? It will build your character to when you actually get to do it. So in the meantime, and this was very difficult, all this bad press is coming out. I'm being called a liar. Oh, he's a fake. He's a liar. He never had permission. And I have to keep training. And people are saying, why are you training? It's over. I don't believe it. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. And then what happened? Just before, and I remember this was in June of 1989. I'm talking to my manager on a Friday. And we had a contract. It was all made up. We had a contract from a major corporation. This is 1989. And they were going to put their main name on my chest for $500,000. $500,000. I'm like, holy cow, give me the contract. Fax it to me. Let's sign the contract. And my manager said, Kevin, don't worry about it. Listen, we'll do it on Monday. What can happen over the weekend? And the next day, Saturday, June 4th, 1989, and the tanks roll into Tiananmen Square, and shots are being fired, and blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God, I just lost $500,000. So then on Monday, I'm not signing a contract at $500,000. I'm getting phone calls from Chris Dodd's office. I'm getting phone calls from National Geographic saying, Kevin, you cannot go out to China at this time. It's too volatile. You have to wait another year. I'm like, another year, And of course, the Chinese are contacting me too, saying, oh, come on over, Now it's 1990. Here's my thought. I just want to do this trip. I just want to do my dream. I just want to cycle the Great Wall. That's it. Leave me alone. Okay? Just that. God had other plans because when we went to do the trip the following summer of 1990, I am now have the spotlight on me and I am the first American to go back to China to do this incredible tour. And I was going to be focused on U.S.-China relations. And so now my government is coming to me and saying, okay, Kevin, now you got to be a good boy. And they were basically training me, like, how are you going to answer questions on certain things? And how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do this? And you are now our country's representative. And I was known at that time as Captain America because of my red, white, and blue. So I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not here to represent my country. I don't want the focus on me. I just want to do my little thing. Nope. It became a big spotlight on me for 3 months, to where at that time, over 1 billion people heard, read, saw my trip all over Europe. I mean, I remember getting articles in Japanese and Russian and African, and all these articles were being mailed to me of all the different languages of where I was cycling the Great Wall. And China put a big spotlight on me because they wanted to show improved U.S.-China relations. So it became this big thing. And so it became bigger. The dream became bigger than myself.
Yes.
And after that, I was saying, well, I just wanted to be the first. Now anybody can go cycle the Great Wall. Not true, because it was so big that the Chinese government does not allow anybody anymore to cycle the Great Wall. So I'm it. Only one, I'm it by default. And that's something I have to live with, for the rest of my life.
So I think what Kevin's pointing out here is there's going to be all kinds of disruptions there can be all kinds of disruptions, and you have to decide in his 3 points, are you determined and do you have the discipline to continue that? Another thing, and we're going to have to cut this off, Kevin, but he's got another book. It's not published yet, but it's coming out, and it's called, he had to give me how do you say that, Kevin?
Vicegerent,
God's Reluctant Servant. And that's going to be coming out. He said most people have heard and read about near-death experiences, and he's going to share that. Divergent tells the reader about the near-death experience at the next level. So if anybody's interested in that, keep watching for that publication coming out, because I think it might be interesting to some of you. Now, I'd like to also say, we've talked about God, and so if any of you have a problem with that, then maybe look inside yourself. That's what Hello Self is about, is look inside yourself and say, why do I feel that push away, or why do I feel that connection? So I think on Hello Self, we want to present a lot of different kind of thought processes, because that's what waking up our biases and our beliefs, and that's where we are in our society today. Some people say, well, I don't want to associate with you because you're Black, or you're from another country, or you're this. It's always something. What's inside of you that tears that up? And what Kevin has shared today, not only in the people he's helping, but his own experiences. It wasn't easy, and it's never necessarily easy, even when God is on your side, or when you know that there's people excited about what you're doing. It's never easy. So I really like this 3D approach of desire, determination, and discipline. Because if you want something, then just take those simple 3 steps and get going. And 2025 is the time to set it up. I want to add one more thing, and then I'll ask Kevin to tell us one thing he'd like to leave this podcast with. Something that Kevin said in the notes he sent to me, and I thought it's very interesting. I never wanted a short obituary. What do you think? Is he going to have a short one? Okay, Kevin, I like that a lot. He's already created so many things in his life that his obituary will go on, and then he'll be sharing some books that give you a little bit more of understanding. But Kevin, just as we're closing this out, let's do you have one short, here's what I would say to you as an individual, or to my Hello Self listeners, here's the message I want you to get. What would you say?
I say the one thing, the top thing, and this is for me, I practice what I preach. So everything that I've been telling you in this podcast, I do. And my one top thing is you have to have a servant's heart. You must have a servant's heart, and you must get this into your DNA. You must get this into your thinking. And you must serve not with a heart that says, okay, I'll serve so I get something out of it. No, I will serve and not expect anything from it. But if something does happen, that's a nice bonus. And that's what I would leave the listeners. On the book Vicegerent, Vicegerent is an old English term that means ambassador. And everybody has heard of NDE, near-death experience. People have written books about their near-death experience. And the difference between a near-death experience and a vicegerent, there's two different things, two different levels. A near-death experience has this one experience, my 3 minutes in heaven, my 90 minutes in heaven, my 20 minutes in hell, whatever. They have this one experience, that's it, write a book, and we're done. But God taps, for whatever known reasons, God taps some of us who've had near-death experiences. He taps us and says, you are going to be my vicegerent. I am going to reveal some of my mysteries to you, and you are going to be my vicegerent until I call you home. So what the book has is basically just the highlights. I can't write all the experiences, all the spiritual experiences that I've had in 57 years so far.
Right.
But I just had to do the highlights, like the first healing that ever came from the palm of my hands, the first healing, or the out-of-body experiences, or some of the mysteries of God, like when he showed me the room where the book of life, where we are all in the book of life. And he showed me that room, and he showed me the book and how, the dimensions of the book and how big it is. And every person since Adam and Eve has one page of that book, or one of the chapters that people that have read, doctors in theology. And I never wanted to write that chapter, but God kind of pricked my heart on it, was how to pronounce the name of God. And when he revealed that to me, it just really opened up my mind, and my God, we all pronounce the name of God, whether we realize it or not. And if you don't believe in God, you still pronounce the name of God. If you curse God, you're still pronouncing the name of God. Yes. If you say, I'm an atheist, I'm an agnostic, and so it's these mysteries that I put into the book. And and God revealed there's over 200 million vicegerents throughout the world. And so I'm just bringing that term back to date. And so that's really the next level of the near-death experience people. And a book like this has never been written before. And I didn't want to write it. God told me to start, put this stuff down in 1999. And I delayed it all this time until 2019. And finally I talked to God. I said, all right, I confess, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this book. I want to keep the secrets that you gave me, and I just want to die and not reveal anything because I want my privacy. See, it was the I. It was the I. I want this.
Right.
And I said, look, Lord, if you want this book written, you're just going to have to put me in jail like the Apostle Paul. And then I went, don't put me in jail, Lord. Do not put me in jail. I don't want to go to jail. And then what happened? COVID hit. And we all were in jail.
And you all went to jail.
We all went to jail. And so I raised my hands and I said, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do any film projects or anything like that. I said, okay, Lord, I give up. I'll write the book. And
so I would suggest that everybody get the book. Even if you haven't had an experience and you don't care about that, just get it. And educate yourself about how somebody else sees their experience in the world, or their experience with God. And Johnny Cash, I remember he wrote about, before he wrote his last great song, he wrote about going to the other side, dying, and they rejected him and said, it's not time. And he went back and came back and then wrote one of his best selling songs ever. And he shared that experience. So there's been many people that have had those kind of experiences. Probably you have, and it'll help you to know that you're not crazy. You're just part of what is going on. We walk in two worlds on planet Earth. One is the earthly world, and one is, well, the planet, and then other is spiritual world.
Mhm.
What we're doing, and what Kevin's book will help you do, perhaps, is to wake up that knowing to the spiritual side of yourself that is guiding your path along the way. Kevin, I cannot tell you how excited I am about this, and we've gone a little longer than I normally go, but it's like you said, your obituary is going to be long. Well, you know, these are things that as we transition into 2025, it's not going to be a slam bam, thank you, ma'am kind of world anymore. We are going to have to pay attention and listen and slow down. I think Kevin said it best. When we were put in jail with COVID was a chance for us to think about life and experience others. And I think that's why 2025 is the beginning of a brand new society, world, not just the United States, but the world. So I'm so excited. And thank you again, my friend. I'm so grateful that Tom Mulligan from here in Nashville has introduced us. Your message is so needed for 2025 and the world ahead. All generations, mature, older generations of the world. So thank you so much. And here we go. We're going to sign off now. This is Patricia Leonard, your podcast host for Hello Self. And as I always say, keep dreaming.
Thank you for joining Hello Self today, and may it offer insights and inspire you to stay on your runway to success. Like, share, and subscribe. And remember this, keep dreaming.